Good morning, Diane. Oh, you can go.
Just gonna throw my workout clothes. Yeah.
There you go. Atta girl. I love it. Uh,
Hey Jim, I just have to say that I really enjoyed your birthday because those lemon squares that were left in the kitchen weren't safe around me. Oh, thank you so much.
or me.
I
Pleading
only,
guilty there.
I only
It
ate
was
this.
a very lemony birthday. It was.
Oh, lemony snickets. I can't wait till next year.
Good morning, April. How are you? We're gonna let everybody roll in here. We still got a couple minutes.
Doing well, Tony. How are you doing?
On a Zoom call with you. Doesn't get much better.
It's a good day. Yeah.
And we got about 5-6 inches of snow. It's beautiful outside, so it's a wonderful thing.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Mm. So, yeah, usually people will start rolling in, and by 8:30, 8:31, we've got, we'll see 30, 40 people.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is. And it's consistent every league. I think I mentioned to you, we've been doing this we started it 7 years ago. It was strip practice in person.
Wow.
And then COVID changed all that. And so it's been, it's the brainchild of our operating principal, Bill Weidecker, who's amazing. And
Wow.
it's grown, and people come in, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really amazing what Zoom has allowed for the capabilities to teach at this level. I think is really incredible.
One of the benefits of a very not so good thing, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's allowed us to explore avenues and options that we never would have thought of, I don't think, otherwise, because we were forced into. We had no choice. So they are rolling in here. Let's see if Kim's gonna get me the host here. No, she's not yet, but she will. Oh, excited. All right, 20. Oh, good. So we're at 26 on already. Nice.
People are probably still shoveling out, Tony.
No, come on, Mary Hope.
There was a lot of heavy snow today.
Yes, there was. Oh, the trees were bending, I will tell you that right now.
Okay.
Definitely. It was good. All right, so it is 8:30. We're gonna get rolling here. I don't want to punish the prompt. So April, I'm gonna put you on a spotlight. So here we go. You have been spotlighted. So we got 33 on already. Hey, so good morning, everybody. I know usually it's Diane's morning on Monday, so she's graciously allowed me to kind of shift over. Our special guest today, April Spilde. April and I met at the One Thing, did a community workshop. I got to do a little bit of coaching with her and her boss out in Alaska. And that's how we got to know her. And I've just been following along on her journey, which has been quite something. From two Ironmans, I believe.
And one half Ironman and one full distance Ironman in Alaska.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, and a few triathlons mixed in just for fun.
Yeah.
And you're a senior master sergeant in the U.S. Air Force, 15 years of service. Thank you very much for your service. And now you've just transferred from Alaska to Colorado Springs. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing in Colorado Springs.
Wow. So I feel very blessed because it's my dream job. It's what I've wanted for since I retrained into my career field, which is equal opportunity. So currently I am the Deputy Director of the United States Air Force Academy for Equal Opportunity. And what I do is I oversee the human relations, education, training, and complaint process for the cadets at the Air Force Academy. So I'm very lucky. I feel very honored to have that ability to do that work here at not only in Colorado Springs, but specifically at the Air Force Academy.
Awesome. So you started in 2008. Kind of tell me about your journey and how that kind of grew along, and what was the some of the challenges that you faced as you went through that.
Wow. So I joined the Air Force in 2008. And it's kind of a crazy story because I was 22 years old and I was currently in my second year of university, and I was really dealing with feelings of not knowing who I am and having pretty much feeling pretty aimless. And at that time, I was going to school for journalism. And as I was progressing along in the coursework, I just realized this is not what I want to do. And I was also pretty far in student debt, and I had not had any savings or anything set aside for education. So it was already a very daunting feeling knowing that I was in debt and also unsure of what I wanted to do. And what happened was my sister Amy, I have 4 sisters.
Okay.
And I'm a
Wow.
middle child. Yes. And my mother actually had all 4 of us girls by the time she was 23. She was a single mom, just extremely tenacious. Yes. And we just, grew up in this family that really supported and loved one another, even though we had, the odds were against us. So with all that being said, I saw my sister Amy join the Army a year prior. And Amy is a very sweet person, very loving and kind, but she didn't have a lot of self-confidence. And what happened was I saw a transformation in her over that year that just really blew my mind. And her confidence skyrocketed, and just her ability to talk to people, look people in the eye, like have that upright posture. And her insecurity, right, just vanished. And I was like, this is incredible. So I actually took a leap of faith. I dropped out of college at the age of 22 and I joined the Air Force because I wanted to do something that felt meaningful to me. I wanted to do something that was bigger than me, and I also needed structure. I needed some self-discipline, and I thought this was a crazy jump, but also probably one of the better things I can do for myself to give me that experience. So I joined in 2008. I enlisted, and I became a military police officer, which is probably one of the most self-disciplined and I think also challenging careers you can do in the military. That's just my personal opinion, but I had a hard start. It was very difficult for me. When you talk about challenges, right? It was difficult for me because I definitely came from a place of fear and insecurity about who I was. And it took a lot of time for me to stick up for myself. So I was very much a vulnerable target for bullying. So I dealt with a lot of harassment and bullying early on in my career because I was perceived as weak. And unfortunately, that really hit me hard in the first 4 years. And during that time, I deployed twice. I went to Afghanistan in 2009, and then I went to UAE, or United Arab Emirates, in 2011. And both those times were actually breaks for me, if you can believe that, to get away from the climate that I was in. And we'll talk a little bit about this later, but it was an opportunity for me to have what's called post-traumatic growth. So learning how to look at adversity and overcoming obstacles and looking for positive ways to grow from a traumatic experience, or experiences, I will say. So my military career after that, I thankfully had someone step in as a mentor after my second deployment. And he was the chief of my unit at the time, and he saw in me a lot of potential. And he put the idea into my head to apply for the Air Force Honor Guard. And what that is it's an elite ceremonial unit that primarily performs military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. So it's one of the most humbling, but also honorable services you can do in the Air Force. And I because of his ability to see my potential and put me forward for that and give me the confidence to apply, I was accepted. And that's kind of where I had a real pivotal shift in my Air Force career and who I am as a person, and my confidence. And then basically what that led to was a huge milestone as far as my promotion and growth and I was able to leave there and then um, retrain is what it's called. But basically, I gained another specialty in equal opportunity, which having that past experience of harassment really fed into my desire to be an advocate for those who experience targeting, harassment, and discrimination. And that's where I am now,
Love that.
helping at the Air Force Academy.
Can I rewind just for a second? Something you said earlier is something I heard several months ago for the first time, and it was the post-traumatic growth. And you hear the word post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD,
Right.
but I remember hearing that. So you actually took what was a really bad situation, a rough situation for you personally, and instead of going down it, you took that as an
Exactly.
opportunity to learn and grow.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, I love that. So it sounds to me like that was one of the biggest challenges that you had to face was that, and that you had a mentor that grew you through that. So it sounds like I hear the first thing that pops in my mind is resiliency. What is that word? What does that mean to you, and how's that impacted your job and your life?
So I fully believe that resiliency is the key to unlocking any potential door. Resilience for me is the ability, a lot of people equate it with bouncing back from a traumatic event or an adversity. I don't believe that. I believe it is moving through. Yes, I also agree with taking a knee, like when you need to, when there's something that happens, it's good to take a breather and regroup. But I also believe that you can grow through adversity. And that's where oftentimes people do equate post-traumatic growth with resilience, but they are kind of separate in that resiliency is a skill. Not a lot of people know
Okay.
that. It's something that you build, meaning that we're not born resilient. If that was true, we would come out of our mother's womb bulletproof, right? No.
Interesting. I
Right.
love
We
that.
have to build that skill of resilience, meaning that you have control over how you receive and react to adversity. But it's not something that just happens. You have to be extremely conscious and intentional about it, meaning that there's certain skills that go into how you reframe a negative experience into something that's going to help you move forward. So resilience, when you think about it, it is a way to help you with overcoming adversity that is going to be productive for you and not a setback or a stumbling block that's going to hold you down.
Okay, I love that, and I love the reframe part of it, because we take something that was not good, and we can either go down a road where it's poor me, or it's, hey, how can I get
Right.
better? So you mentioned, I heard the word you say, bulletproof. Tell me more about what you mean by that.
Wow. So I call it bulletproofing the mind. And
Okay.
if you've read anything by David Goggins, he talks about callousing the mind. But I think of it more of not so much that you have to like intentionally cause trauma or pain in order to callous the mind. It's more of or less, how do you use awareness of resilience to avoid falling into cognitive traps? Um, and I'll give you a little bit of a story here about something that highlighted to me my need to build my resilience back in my time from the Honor Guard. So in 2016, I had the honor of being a VIP escort for a World War II prisoner of war who was receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award at what's called the Air Force Association Space Conference. It's a yearly thing that they hold to honor people such of that nature, right? So
Okay.
I knew that this was going to be very high visibility. It was something that was going to be filmed. It was something that was going to have over 500 attendees. It was going to have all the top brass in the Air Force, Space Force, as well as the other services. So what happened was during my duty, I had to stand in front of the stage at attention during the ceremony, and the ceremony lasted, it was over an hour and a half before my time came up to escort him onto stage. So imagine standing at attention, not being able to move in uniform with everything on, causes you to sweat, you're under heavy lights, right? Imagine that feeling of having all eyes on you during this moment and having to look like a statue. No visible signs of like aggravation or anything like that, or weary or anyway, that's something that we're trained and taught to do. And what happened was I was told explicitly before escorting this gentleman on stage that he did not like to be touched. He was in his 90s, and based on his experience as a POW, he was not comfortable with people touching him. So with that in mind, I knew that when I escorted him, I was going to stand directly next to him and just guide him on stage as a light, right? And what happened was several of my cues were wrong, which is something that you're taught to like deal with when you're in a ceremony. Not everything's going to go perfectly, so I just had to kind of breathe through the fact that it wasn't going according to plan for when I was supposed to go get him. And so you can imagine my heart rate was just out the window with how anxious I was. When I finally went up to him, I escorted him, and when we got to the stage, there were about 3 or 4 steps that I needed to guide him up. And I remember him looking at me and asking me, "Young lady, can you help me up the stairs?" And usually as an escort, you do that right out the gate. Like you offer your arm and you bring them up. And to me, it was really embarrassing because I had to, this gentleman had to ask me to do it. And I was under this belief that he didn't like to be touched. So it was already like anxiety was just through the roof. And when you're doing ceremonial guardsman work, you are very much aware of your perception and how people are seeing you because you represent the United States Air Force at that time. So I was already like dealing with the thoughts of like, oh my God, I'm failing this. I cannot believe he had to ask me this. I was just, all these negative thoughts were going through my head. It was like a storm. And what happened was I got on stage and he started to give his speech. And when I went back to attention to await bringing him down, I ended up passing out. And I passed out in front of, yes, hundreds of people. And what happened was the top brass actually rushed the stage. I remember waking up, my feet were in the air, and just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this happened. And it just was mortifying. And it is one of those things that if you can't do your primary duty as a ceremonial guardsman, you kind of become secondary in the unit. I will just say that, like, it's your primary duty, so you then become a secondary alternate, if you will, if you can't perform duties. So it's like a scarlet letter, unfortunately.
Ooh,
and so after that, my confidence went out the window. I had to deal with stamina stands where I had to stand at attention to prove that I could do a ceremony without passing out. And it just really caused this whole like chink in my armor because I was embarrassed and mortified. And of course it went viral and all that crap, right? Yes, but thankfully I had, again, a really great mentor that stepped in and put me into a training role. And that actually allowed me to excel. And what happened was in 2018, because of how well I did in that training role, I won one of the highest awards in the Air Force, which is being named as a 12 Outstanding Airman of the Year. And I was step promoted, meaning that I didn't have to go through a normal promotion. I was immediately promoted to the rank of technical sergeant. So post-traumatic growth, right? That's what I'm aiming at here, is that I had this incredible downfall in 2016. And then in 2018, 2 years later, I rose out of it. What happened then, Tony, and where I'm going with this, is that I went back to that same stage to be the recipient of that award. And you better believe I passed out again.
No.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes. And all those same demons and fears, all those things that I felt like I had overcome sprung up in me, and it overtook my parasympathetic and my ability to control, regulate my feelings and emotions. And I literally had a panic attack and passed out. And of course, all of that cascading ridicule came out again, and it just was another big blow to my confidence. And unfortunately, it did take me a little bit of time to really reconcile what had happened. I did go to therapy for it, and it took a few years for me to feel confident being in front of people and speaking and being able to do ceremonies and engage again. But what happened was I built resilience through bulletproofing my mind. And what I did was I realized that I was not at blame for what happened, right? I stopped shaming myself and chastising myself for something that I had no control over. Legitimately, after I went through therapy and did what's called EMDR, I realized that it all had to do with how my brain is wired and the signals that are firing when I get into a situation like that. It's really literally a fight or flight freeze response, right? So after I came to that realization through therapy, I learned skills on how to move through these types of adversity and the guilt and the shame that I felt from a second occurrence of that level of being humiliated, right? So I say all that to say this: bulletproofing the mind is the ability to avoid cognitive traps, such as blaming yourself, blaming others, and all or nothing thinking, right? So when you look at blaming yourself, usually it's a survival response. It's blaming to move through something or to give an excuse to something that really is out of your control. And usually we're hardwired to do that as on an unconscious level. So when you bring that awareness to, okay, why am I blaming myself for this when I had no control over it? It gives you the ability to start finding solutions to overcome that adversity. And then when you talk about blaming others, it's usually a self-defense mechanism, right? It's something that people use to project the feelings of inadequacy or security onto someone else because they see that other person potentially violating or what they perceive to be violating a wrong.
Okay.
And then there's all or nothing thinking, which, man,
Tell me more about that.
gets a
What
lot
is
of
all or
people.
nothing?
Yeah.
What does that exactly mean? All or nothing thinking.
So I'll give you a perfect example of all or nothing. That's usually right now, right? We're in January. We have those New Year's resolutions. We have that belief that, okay, this year is new year, new me. I'm going to do everything I can to leverage this year to be the best person that I possibly can be. And usually what happens is someone takes on such an extreme behavioral change by going on a crazy diet or doing a crazy workout regimen or doing something so far left of center from who they were that it's unsustainable. And they're either believing that, okay, I either have to do it all this way or I'm not going to do it. I'm a failure or I don't have the ability. It's either all in or all out. And what happens is when they go all in and they see that it's unsustainable, it's usually when they fall off the wagon and lose that momentum. So does that make sense?
Yeah. So how do you work around that mindset?
So first thing is awareness. If you see yourself making or saying things like, I have to do it this way, or it's always this way, or I always lose, or I will never pass this test, right? If you're using words that are like definitive, such as always or never, that's a key indicator that you're in an all or nothing mindset. Another sign of this is giving up easily. So if you have something that is enough of an adversity where you're looking for an excuse to quit, that's an idea of an all or nothing. It's just too difficult to sustain. So any excuse to quit is enough for you to stop. Focusing largely on the downsides, even when a potential opportunity is found. So all or nothing thinking can be like, it's always a negative. Even if there is a little sliver of positive, it's always seen as well, that was harmful, or that wasn't worth my time, or I don't know why I'm doing this. And then making small mistakes, right? Making small mistakes and still feeling like you're a failure, even though progress over perfection, right? This definitely happens with perfectionists, all or nothing thinking. And it just is it can be such a trap because it keeps us from making progress over the long term through sustainable, consistent, small changes, that it is enough for us to lose out on a potentially huge win because we're in that mind frame.
Okay. So what I'm hearing, tell me if I'm right or wrong here. What I'm hearing is what we tell ourselves really matters. The words we use to ourselves really matter as to what we say. I think there's a book called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Dr. Chad Helmstetter, which is a great book about that. So how's that mindset and getting to recognize those cues? How has that helped you get to where you are? Because I've watched your journey over the last couple of years, and you've just been like, just on a huge trajectory, and it's been so fun to watch. So tell me more about how that's worked for you.
So I love that question, Tony, because I think this is the big where the rubber meets the road. I changed the narrative, right? I changed how I talk to myself, and I changed how people perceived me by reclaiming my story. I was so ashamed of what happened on stage, both those times where I would just sit in despair about it and just be like, woe is me. I can't believe this happened to me. Why is this happening? So on and so forth, right? And what I did was I decided, okay, this can be an example of growth for others if others experience something similar to this. It might not be the same circumstances as passing out on stage, but it can be something that I feel like people can learn and understand, because this is definitely something that has happened to people that deal with anxiety, that deal with performance anxiety, especially, that you can reclaim how you talk to yourself, and also rewrite the story or reframe the story. So instead of telling you, Tony, hey, this happened to me, you should feel sorry for me, and I have this disorder. For me, it's like, no, I've learned something about myself. I've learned that this is my body's response to fear, and that if I can work through this through therapy or through self-talk, that I can overcome this. And if this is something you're experiencing, you don't have to feel helpless or hopeless. Like, there are things out there that can help you with giving you the ability to stand up on your own 2 feet and not be shaken. So to me, it's more of when I say rewrite my story, it's the ability to say, no, you don't get to say how I exude my confidence. You don't get to say, and I'm talking to myself and I'm talking to others who have shared a lot of hate for me. You don't get to say or write my story. I'm the owner of that. I'm the author of that. And I choose to turn this into a positive. I choose to share my story because I find it empowering, and I find it something that people can use to overcome whatever stumbling block or obstacle that is in their way.
I love that. So what I'm hearing is that we have choices, and we can choose to be on that positive end. We can choose to go down that proverbial rabbit hole we don't want to go down. Yeah. And you've chosen that positive. Hey, this is my story. You're not writing it for me. You're not telling me. You're not the owner of it. I am, and I love that. So that's brought you from Alaska now to your dream job in Colorado Springs. How does that make you feel?
Pretty incredible. So there's another thing I want to highlight here with this is that you, like I talked about earlier with building resilience, we all have within us a negativity bias. It serves a purpose as far as survival and defense, right? And I learned that if you have the ability to turn that spiral around That's where resilience comes in. So if we can understand that, I'm not talking about like Pollyanna positive thinking, like just they be positive, right? What I am talking about is looking for the opportunity to learn and grow through adversity. That's going to put you on the positive spiral to get the benefit out of what is occurring. And that's where you have that conscious choice of one, being aware of when this is happening, when you are falling into those traps, and two, knowing how to reframe it so that it doesn't take you out. So to me, that's the most important thing, and that is what has gotten me to this point, is understanding that these setbacks are honestly stepping stones. I've chosen to make them stepping blocks, stepping stones to get me to this point, and I'm extremely proud of where I'm at. And I wouldn't change a thing. That's the incredible part of this, that I would not change anything that's happened to me, because it has helped me become stronger, more resilient, and more aware of what I can control. And that just has rewarded me in so many ways. The fact that I get to talk to you all about this is a huge reward. So that's how I choose to look at it. I think that's where resilience can really come into play.
Love that. I'm taking the spotlight off you. See, you've done an amazing job. We've got like a couple minutes. I wanted to kind of throw it out there, see if anybody's got comments, questions. I'm seeing a lot of things in the chat. Inspiring. Thank you for sharing, some really nice things. If anybody has a question, would like to come off mute, please. We've got about a minute or two left, and I'd love to have you. Oh, hand up, Miss Kelly Irwin.
Good morning. First of all, April, thank you so much. There's so much significance to everything that you're saying in regards to the mindset and sharing your experience. With that being said, I picked up some nuggets as you were talking, and I'm working on training my brain to recognize that maybe some of the negative or limiting beliefs that I tell myself, I need to flip the narrative in the story and use those to my advantage to find the positive in those, right? And that, like, maybe a negative that I feel I have, I'm in the middle of reading How We Live is How We Die. I don't know if you've ever read that, but it's all about telling the story in our mind and changing how the scenario comes out, because if we're not telling ourselves, there's no way for us to overcome some of these huge obstacles in life. So everything you said resonated so much. I can't thank you enough for sharing and being vulnerable and being a role model to everyone on this call. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Love that. Diane Davidson, take us home.
All of that, April. And, the fact that you labeled PTG for me, and I think for a lot of us, we had our ALC, our Associate Leadership Council, we had our retreat last week, and everybody was asked to share 3 things that happened, 3 incidents, 3 things, whatever. A thing could be years of a childhood, whatever, that changed or impacted their life. And there was not a dry eye in the house. And I think for all of us to kind of know that it was very, very impactful. And the message was, and everybody in that group was able to turn some sort of event or period of their life into something positive, which I will venture a guess that just about everybody in this community could do the same and does the same, or we probably wouldn't be here today. And so I thank you for helping us all understand that what we're doing. We knew what we were doing, but sometimes when things have a brand, it helps. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, Diane. April, thank you so much for your time. I know it was 6:30 Mountain Standard Time, so I appreciate you getting up early. And thank you
anytime
for that. And a quick plug: this Friday we start with Ignite. Just had to throw that in. Don't forget, get signed up for Ignite. It's 20 sessions coming up. April, thank you so much. We'll talk soon. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. I really
All right,
appreciate your
guys.
time too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.